This is the Multiorgasmic Millionaire, the podcast to help you have epic sex, pleasure, and passion in the bedroom and beyond. I am your host, your sex coach, Tilly Storm. And as your sex coach, I'm here to give you the overall bird's eye view on how exactly to experience epic pleasure and passion if you're lacking libido or not experiencing any pleasure or passion in your relationship anymore. Over the next 5 days, I'm going to be doing something that I've never done before, that I'm going to be announcing in a moment. But first, let me give you a little background on what brings me to this announcement. I've been helping women to get their mojo back, have amazing orgasms, spice things up in the bedroom, get their pleasure back, help them have an orgasm in the first place if they never had one, break vibrator dependency, feel like they can finally effectively communicate with their partner about sex and intimacy. I've been doing this all since 2017. And since then, I've had several different offerings, many different ways of helping people. So meaning like I've had different ways that people could pay me to help them implement the change and the transformation they came to me for. And through those different offers, I've been able to work with hundreds of clients privately, in group settings, and even through self-guided online courses over the past 7 years. And as you can imagine, by doing that, I have learned so much about what it actually takes to resolve low and mismatched libido, how to help them feel pleasure and experience multiple orgasms if they were experiencing pain or absolute numbness and disconnection before, and how to reignite the passion and the spark in the relationship and spice things up finally. And now, what's also true is that this podcast, has reached over 370,000 listeners over the past 6 years, which is insane. So not only have I worked directly with hundreds of paying clients, but I've been able to impact the lives of literally hundreds of thousands of people. Suffice it to say, I've done nothing over the past 7 years but dedicate myself to this mission of helping women to feel that they can be alive and vibrant and free in their sexuality and really empowered in their relationship. And I've done that all while raising 2 teenagers, world schooling my kids for a year, finally settling down in South Florida. I went through a name change. I started a new relationship 3.5 years ago. And I've done all of this while dedicating my work to supporting you. And in doing so, I have actually learned a lot about what it really takes, which is great because not only has it impacted you, but it's impacted myself and how I relate to my man, both relationally and sexually. Because when you teach somebody else, you obviously get so much clarity about that thing for yourself and it supports you. So for the past year, as I've only been taking private high-level clients, I just started a group program again in November of 2023. But the entire year before that, I was only working with private clients. And that gave me a lot of time to go back and review all of the offerings and upgrade them with absolutely amazing video teachings and trainings and embodiment practices that you are literally not going to find anywhere else. You cannot go to a therapist's office to get this. You can't work with a sex therapist to get what I give you. I have refined my offers. I've gotten tons of clarity on what type of person needs private coaching and what type of person can suffice it with group coaching or maybe even an online course or program. And I do this through the pleasure assessment calls that people book with me for free. So these are complimentary calls that I offer. And because I've done literally thousands of those calls at this point, I can pinpoint very quickly which type of person needs what type of support. So as I've been upgrading all of this content over the past year, what came through was actually a much more concise system that I wanted to more simply and effectively articulate to you. It's something I've kind of struggled with ever since I started coaching in 2017, is being able to articulate what it is I actually help people with. And what's also true is that the way that I coach people has changed a lot. I realized that in the beginning, I had a tendency to go so deep with clients when I first started out as a coach that some of the fundamentals about sexuality and relationships and pleasure were missed because I had a false assumption that people knew these things, that maybe they were raised like I was and they had a pretty healthy blueprint of what relationships look like. Well, I realized how wrong I was. Working with them, I saw just how little sexuality and relationship and pleasure education exists, and how, in particular, women who were raised with a heavy feminist programming and upbringing, even though I wasn't, I was raised very Christian, very fundamentalist, conservative. Even though I had that, the school that I went to and everything I got taught and what was going on in culture and TV and the media, I still got so much of this heavy feminist programming, and I absolutely didn't see how much it was ruining my own relationships, and not realizing how much it was actually ruining the relationships of my clients until the last several years. So in particular, I have had to go back and update all of my content and really create these fundamentals that people were missing. I had to give them these fundamentals around conscious communication. How do you actually talk effectively without emasculating your partner? How do you actually have a fun conversation about pleasure and sex and not sink into guilt, shame, and fear and disgust around it, right? So there were so many fundamentals that were missing in the early work that I did with clients. Due to this, I had to refresh everything. I had to refresh my teachings, the trainings, the embodiment practices they give, and I had to shift how I began coaching with people so I could articulate how to have epic pleasure and passion in the way that I know is required for my perfect clients. And that's not only for my paid material and all of my coaching programs, but it's also true in that there are tons of listeners out here on this podcast who aren't yet paying clients. You haven't joined any of my coaching programs or online courses, but you listen to this podcast on how to experience epic pleasure and passion. So when I reviewed my podcast stats for the year, what I realized is that so many people go back to the beginning of the podcast and they start listening from there onward. But the thing is, a lot of that content is so old and outdated, and there's a lot of stuff that I said in the beginning of my coaching career that I really just don't agree with anymore, or that I don't align with anymore. And a lot of it is just old and not useful overall from learning and becoming a top 20 sex coach in 2022. And I've learned to articulate and say what's true now in a much more clear and concise manner. And a lot of the content is very, very different than what it was in 2017. So the time has come, my loves, for me to release the ultimate guide to epic pleasure and passion in 2024. So that's what I'm going to do over the next 5 days. So here is me officially announcing the 5 days to epic pleasure and passion for high achieving women training on this podcast. I re-recorded these episodes. This is a training I originally did in 2022, and I re-recorded it in, November 2023. I recorded it like January 2022. So it was almost 2 years. And I re-recorded the episodes that became available as an opt-in on my email list. So you could go to my website, you could opt into it, but I wanted to make these episodes accessible to everyone, whether you got on my email list or not. Of course, I want you to get on my email list because this is a way that I can stay in touch with you, because I do not actively participate in social media at all. I honestly despise it, so I don't show up there anymore, and I stay in my lane over here on the podcast and strive to stay connected with you via email. So I know it's kind of old school, but it is just the way that I do things. So in this training, I'm going to be giving you some resources to try that you will have to put in your name and email if you actually want them. Not giving you all of that stuff without a name and email, sorry, but it's not required for you to do that. So if you don't want to do it, it's totally fine. Today is Sunday, January 14th, and beginning tomorrow, January 15th, 2024, for 5 straight days, I am going to publish an episode onto the podcast that teaches you my methodology on how to experience epic pleasure and passion and really spice things up in your relationship in 2024. What this will amount to is a totally free mini course on all of this, everything that's in place that I have now. And in tandem to the daily podcast training, I'm also letting you know that if you are serious and committed about doing what it takes and you're ready for paid support and accountability, that my next group program is launching the last week of January 2024, and the last day to join us on that journey is January 26th, 2024. So yes, I'm going to be busting a bunch of myths here and sharing with you all my free embodiment practices for singles and couples that you can opt into. But if you actually want to go on the journey with like-minded women going through the same thing and really do the inner work and the embodiment work that's only available in my paid containers, I'm going to make an invitation to you to fill out a coaching application for my paid group program, Multiorgasmic Bliss. So if you vibe with the content here on this free mini course that I'm sharing with you over these next 5 days, and you're really ready to implement the changes with paid support, okay, this is paid, so you do need money to invest in this program, then you're likely going to be a great fit for the program, and I will be happy to speak with you about it further. So if you're already raising your hand and you're like, heck yeah, I've been waiting for the next group program because I feel like that's the right fit for me, then all you have to do is click the link in the show notes to apply, book the call with me, and we're going to chat to ensure it's the right fit for you. And that is all for today, my loves. Tomorrow I'm going to be back with the first audio of this mini course called The Truth About Intimacy and Why Couples Therapy and Tips, Tricks, and Techniques Won't Cut It. All right, see you tomorrow.